Welcome into Candlestick Chronicles, a 49ers podcast on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Madson, right about the 49ers over at NinersWire.com, part of the USA Today Sports Media Group. Joining me right now, Chris Biderman of the Sacramento Bee. And before we dive into this Chase Young trade news, we're going to tell you about our friends over at Lamb Chops. sglambchops.com is the website. Candlestick 20 is the promo code to get 20% off your order. They have a new winter line coming out. Make sure to follow them on Instagram at sglambchops to get all the updates on all the latest styles. They have hoodies, they've got t-shirts, they've got shorts, they've got sweatpants. I am so excited for hoodie season, Chris, with my new Lamb Chops hoodies.
Sacramento is in like a love-hate relationship with the idea of hoodie season right now. It is like warm one second, it is freezing another, and no one can, like, Sacramento can't just figure it out. I would really love for Sacramento, not the weather. I'm not talking about the people, the weather, to just like decide, okay, it's hoodie season, so we don't have to keep doing this back and forth thing.
I'm wearing my Lamb Chops hoodies no matter what. So Sacramento, as you figure that out, I'm down. I drive into work at 5:30 in the morning. It's 45 degrees out. I need a hoodie, and Lamb Chops are my favorite ones. You should get yours at sglambchops.com. Promo code Candlestick20 for 20% off your order today.
Phenomenal sweatpants, of course, and we love zipper pockets. We're still going.
Okay.
The zipper pockets, legit. You know how much the zipper pockets, how much
nobody loves a zipper pocket more than you.
No, absolutely not.
All right. We're also sponsored by Cooperage Brewing. CooperageBrewing.com is the website there. You can order Candlestick Chronicles Hazy IPA by the case. You get a case of it shipped right to your front door. It's a next day shipping. As long as you're in the state of California and 21 or over, they will ship it directly to your door. They have so many good beers there. They have Pilsners. They have stouts. It's about stout season. I can't wait to have a good stout with the weather cold. They have sparkling seltzer. Seltzer is the word I was looking for. They have seltzers if you're not into beer or if you're just more into seltzers. They have great selection.
You know how I feel about Cooperage. I let it be known that it competes with anything, anywhere, particularly in the North Bay beer scene. There are a lot of people who work at a lot of other prominent beer makers, and they go to Cooperage to drink because that's how they feel about the beer there. So I'm not going to name names, but if you think of the famous beer spots, some of the famous beer spots in Santa Rosa, and the fact that a lot of people who work at those establishments and go to Cooperage to drink their beer, I think speaks for itself. So shout out to everyone at Cooperage. It's as good as anything out there.
And shout out to Cooperage for sponsoring this very podcast. Get any beer, but particularly the Candlestick Chronicles Hazy IPA at CooperageBrewing.com today. All right, let's talk about this Chase Young trade. So there I was on the radio interviewing our good friend and our favorite Disney cast member, Nick Wagner. And he was talking about Steve Wilkes. I'd asked him, hey, is Steve Wilkes going to make it through the bye week? And he's in the middle of this long answer. And I look up at my screen on Twitter. And 30 seconds ago, Ian Rappaport, the 49ers have traded a mid-round pick to the Commanders for Chase Young. So I said, hey, Nick, what do you think? Just cut him off. And I've never gotten to ask somebody a question about, like a reporter, a question about breaking news as it was happening. So that was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. What did Nick say aside from that? Just like him having to go.
That I honestly, I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
He liked the move.
Sure.
But
like, did he give you the deep dive of like analysis, or was it just?
No, it was a pretty quick, like off the cuff, because he's a journalist. He had things to go do. So it wasn't a super deep dive, but overall for me, just in a vacuum, I think getting Chase Young for a compensatory third round pick, even if he is a half season rental, is a good move. Regardless of the issues the team is facing, anytime you can add a high quality pass rusher to your defensive line and you're a team that believes it can contend for a Super Bowl, I think you should do it, particularly if it's a compensatory third round pick in a season where you are in a draft year where you already have two of those. So I really, really like this deal for San Francisco.
If you were to forget about the last 3 weeks. And even like back in August when you and I had the discussion about this very idea of adding Chase Young to this group, you would look at this defensive line now and say, man, this is one of the best defensive lines on paper I've ever seen. Like, full stop. Like, you have Chase Young, a former number 2 pick, Nick Bosa, reigning defensive player of the year, obviously number 2 pick in 2019. You add Javon Hargrave, you have Eric Armstead. Like, there was discussion before the season started about, by us and many others, is this defensive line, this year's version going into the season, as good as a 2019 version? Now, the most surprising thing, in my opinion, about this 49ers season so far, particularly during this 3-game losing streak, is that the defensive line has not been up to billing. It hasn't been nearly as good as any of us really expected it to be.
Right.
I think there are a number of factors at play. I think Nick Bosa's holdout in training camp in the offseason impacted that to some degree. He hasn't been the dominant player that we're used to seeing. I think that's been a factor. I also think the coverage and Steve Wilks has factored into that as well. And we've talked about, the number, like the Niners playing defense on a string with their coverage and tying it all together, taking away early reads, force a quarterback to double pump with the ball, give the defensive line more time to get after the passer. And that hasn't been effective because the last 3 weeks, quarterbacks have been able to get to their top of their drop, make 1 or 2 reads, and then, fire off to their targets. And so I think what this does now is it basically gives everybody a little bit more like margin for error. Like, Nick Bosa is not going to get doubled as often as he would have. Maybe if you have maybe some of the interior guys aren't going to get doubled as often as they would have. And you also get, I think one of the benefits of this is you get Chase Young basically playing for a contract in an ideal scenario, right? Like, he could, if he has 10 sacks over the final, what are there, 9 games left?
9 games.
If he has like 10 sacks, all of a sudden he's going to be a dude who might be making $25-30 million a year next year, right? And like, we can't rule out, just given his talent and given, the supporting cast that's going to be around him, that's not far-fetched. And if they have a guy like that who's capable of doing that alongside Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, and Eric Armstead, then the ceiling for this 49ers defense could potentially be really high. But that's sort of been the confounding thing about all of it, is that the defense has not been up to standard as of yet. And so maybe this is a shot in the arm they need. Coming during the bye, I think the bye does nothing but help, right? It allows Steve Wilks to get more time to look in the mirror and figure out what's going on with the defense. It allows the players to maybe get a little bit healthier, and maybe get away from football for a second if there's been an element of like pressing over the last 3 weeks. But I think overall, when you just look at it, the fact that they're trading a compensatory pick that they basically got for, developing minority candidates for head coaching and GM positions, and to potentially get half a season of Chase Young as a rental. And then if he leaves in free agency and they get a compensatory 3rd-round pick back, then there's really it's hard to find much of a downside here. But if you are looking for a downside, you can look at, Chase Young's injury history and the fact he tore his ACL in 2021. He played 9 games in 2021. He played 3 the next year in 2022, and really has not been what he was as a rookie when he had 7.5 sacks in 2020 and he won Defensive Rookie of the Year, right? So the ceiling's incredibly high. It's at a minimal cost, and the cap number, I mean, his contract's basically fully guaranteed, and Washington paid the vast majority of it. I think his cap hit for the 49ers is completely negligible at this point. So really the only downside is the injury history. And if he doesn't get back to the form that he was at in 2020, because of the injury history, then it's problematic. But again, this is a dude who has 5 sacks in 7 games this season, which is, a double-digit sack pace. So
and better than anything the Niners are currently rolling out.
Exactly. And so I have a hard time finding any real downside to this. I think it's a great deal. And honestly, it's, I think it's That's why we talked about it in August, because we thought something like this could happen.
Here's my issue, because I think you hit all the appropriate nails on this deal in itself, right? My one problem, I guess, for lack of a better word, is that I don't think talent has been the problem for the 49ers. And I don't know that throwing Chase Young at the other side of Nick Bosa is going to cure what ails San Francisco right now. And maybe
would you rather have Chase Young there than Cleveland Farrell or Drake Jackson?
1,000%. Like I said, I'm not saying they shouldn't have done the move. They improved their defensive line today, without question. But is our teams going to continue just getting rid of the ball quickly, and the 49ers aren't going to be able to do anything about it in coverage? Is that what's just going to go down? Is oh my God, I almost called him Nick Mullins. Is Brock Purdy going to continue turning the ball over in the second half? Are they going to continue missing tackles? Like these are all problems for me that have not necessarily stemmed from the defensive line. Like Nick Bosa had 9 pressures against the Bengals. He had a really good day, but they just couldn't get the quarterback on the ground. Well, Burrow made that unbelievable play in the first quarter where he broke 2 tackles, but they couldn't get him on the ground because he's getting rid of the ball too quickly. And Kirk Cousins did the same thing. So maybe putting Chase Young on the other side speeds the quarterback up that much, but I'm a little bit dubious of that, and I still think that they have adjustments to make, specifically in the secondary, if they're going to start getting stops. And they also have to just tackle. Missing tackles is gonna also be a significant problem.
Hearing Kyle Shanahan say, and this is sort of an aside, and maybe this is part of the Steve Wilkes discussion, but hearing Kyle Shanahan say on Monday in his press conference call with reporters that the thing that stuck out to him about the defense the most was the fact that it looked so slow and tired. That was wild to me. That was really wild, because we have not, like, effort and like looking slow has never been part of the Niners' defensive issues when they haven't played well over the last few years. It's just been like, whatever, coverage bus, cornerbacks aren't good enough. It's never been like, well, they look slow and tired. That's never been something. So that to me is pretty alarming.
I'm totally with you. I was aghast that he said that. But it's just not, you wouldn't expect that, because what did we talk about the first 5 weeks? It was, look how dialed in they are. This team knows that the goal is the number 1 seed. And man, they're so locked in. They're just on a mission. And then, okay, you have a little slip up against Cleveland, but hey, you can get back on track Monday night, prime time against the Vikings. You can go shut down Kirk Cousins, get back on track, and just get lit up. Like, okay, here you can bounce back against Joe Burrow and the Bengals, and then get lit up again. And just I mean, maybe the bye week is good, and maybe that screams to me something we talked about in the last podcast, is that some message is not getting through to that unit. But
yeah, and I'm curious, like, I'm not going to pretend like I'm some schematic wizard, but I am curious as to what the schematic situation is versus what it was like in, I'm going to ask around a little bit. But like what's happening schematically that makes it seem like there's such a disconnect between what's happening up front and what's happening in the secondary? Because to me, there was like a real symbiotic relationship when the 49ers defense was playing its best under Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans. It was like they were complementing each other. They were playing on a string, right? Like that to me is a real thing. And it just looks completely disjointed right now. Whereas like they're not tying the coverage with the pass rush in the sense that they're like forcing the quarterback to hold on to the ball longer than he needs to. Like the quarterback is just getting rid of the ball too quickly. And I think that's a result of the coverage. And to me, I wonder how much Steve Wilkes is at fault, or, how much different is this coverage scheme compared to what the 49ers are used to running? Because by and large, like it's been a very similar scheme going from, 2017 to 2022. And now we haven't seen the 49ers struggles look like this on defense, right? When they've been struggling defensively, it's been like, well, their corners just aren't any good and they're committing too many pass interference penalties and
Mm-hmm.
et cetera, et cetera. It's never been, man, the quarterback's just getting the ball out too quickly and finding guys open way too easily. That's never been an issue with the 49ers defense until this point. So that's why I think it's so alarming. And to your point, maybe Chase Young doesn't impact that. But if that's the case and they cannot, prevent quarterbacks from getting rid of the ball quickly through their coverage. By the way, Steve Wilks is a defensive backs coach, right? Like that's what he is by nature.
That's what I thought was going to be good about this year was man, you're going to get defensive backs are going to be playing really well.
Right. And so that if they can't fix that, obviously they're not going to go nearly as far as they had hoped. But also, like, Steve Wilks is not going to be long for the job, if that's the case.
Yeah. If they don't sack Trevor Lawrence 13 times in week 10, I'll be ready to say goodbye to Steve Wilks.
The not the Bengals, the Jaguars, that different
just cat. The large cat.
Different large jungle
apex predator.
Yeah, sure. The Jaguars are 13-4 in their last 17 games.
Yeah, they're good, man.
That's pretty wild.
They're really good. Trevor Lawrence can play.
Trent Baalke.
Yeah, just getting it done.
Just GMing up a storm in Jacksonville.
He fell backwards into Trevor Lawrence. What are we doing? Whatever.
I miss Trent Baalke.
Do you?
The funny thing is, like, you see, as a media member, you see John Lynch. He's like so eager to like come up and shake your hand and like know your name and all of that stuff, and like be very friendly and affable and strike conversation with you. Trent Baalke could not be any different.
Just a dick.
Baalke, if Trent Baalke could live in a windowless room with a projector and a clicker, and his only job is to watch film and never converse with another human being who breathes oxygen, Trent Baalke would do that.
Ultimate football guy?
The ultimate football guy.
Is he the football guy? The bulky guy?
The guy who's unhappy with the technique of his DBs, so he has to go out on the practice field and let him know what's what.
That's so funny. Can you imagine John Lynch doing that? At least John Lynch is a Hall of Famer.
I was going to say, yeah.
If John Lynch wanted to pull up and be like, yo, Gip, try this.
John Lynch has pelts on the wall, as our guy Eric Branch would say.
Yeah. And Branch is keeping receipts too.
Always.
No, you know what? One of my least favorite things, just like, and this is everybody does this, is when somebody tries to say an obvious thing but make it like a profound thing that they said.
I told you they had to win the turnover battle this week. I said that.
Right. It's stuff like that. Well, when you bring up John Lynch teaching something to Tayshaun Gibson, and somebody will inevitably go, "Oh, John Lynch could never play in this NFL." Oh, he just hit guys like that. They don't make guys like that anymore. Like, okay, man, thanks.
He might have adjusted. I thought you were going to do the thing where like former football player looks like he can still play.
Oh, dude, and John Lynch does. Let me tell you, he could suit up right now.
John Lynch looks like he can still play, man.
Give him 15 snaps a game. If Monday Night Football, when Steve Young was at ESPN, Steve Young was going to throw a couple passes to Jerry Rice, and people were going to get on Twitter and be like, Jerry, I think you get out there right now. He looks great.
He can still play. It looks great. He might be 53 or whatever he is, but
if you're an athlete who's not just fat as shit after you retire, you look like you can still play.
Exactly. Exactly. You look good in your clothing and you lost a little bit of weight. Oh man, still got it.
That guy might still work out a little bit. Maybe he could play professional sports.
Yeah, I don't. So Chase Young, I don't know. Like, I mean, what's unique about Chase Young? He is like 6'5", 260. Like, he's a bigger, taller, longer defensive end than I feel like we typically see.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like he's like more like Nick Bosa is, like looks like he's built in a lab, right? But Nick Bosa is not like super tall or super long.
Mm-hmm.
Chase Young is super tall and super long. Like he is the prototypical. Like, you remember in the draft, there were people, like reputable people, who thought Chase Young was the better defensive end prospect than either Bosa brother.
Right. which ended up being wrong. But
well, yeah, it ended up being wrong, but he also tore his ACL and like
right.
took a long time to recover from it.
Chase Young, 6'5", 264, 33 3/4 inch arms, 10-inch hands. He didn't do any measurements do any workouts at the combine.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Yeah, I just pulled up his spider graph.
I did too. It's very disappointing.
Very disappointing.
Anyways. Yeah, Chase Young, good player. I think he helps. I think he helps. I just don't believe that this solves every single problem that they were having on defense.
No, and it sounds like they were close to making a deal for Jalen Johnson, but they just didn't want to give a second-round pick.
Is that what it was?
My guess.
I was wondering if they were hoping to trade for him and then signing him long term, and they couldn't find a extension.
Yeah, that might be it too. Tim Kawakami, friend of the show, said that he reported that he thought the 49ers were close to doing a second deal. And obviously that didn't happen. I would guess it would be Jalen Johnson. That was the name that sort of had the most buzz. I think Nick Wagner, our buddy at ESPN, also reported that the 49ers were interested. So I am interested to know like how they prioritize, like what was their thinking there.
I want to know why they didn't trade a 6th-round pick for Ezra Cleveland.
Do you?
Yeah. Throw a fifth at Minnesota. He's a really good guard. Aaron Banks is hurt at the Mo, so you're going to roll John Feliciano out there. You put Ezra Cleveland at left guard until Banks comes back, and then figure it out after that. Maybe move him to the right side or whatever, but I think adding more good offensive linemen should have been their top priority. And I know they added to their practice squad Jesse Davis. Is that his name? Yeah, Jesse Davis. He's played 94 games with 72 starts at the Dolphins and Steelers. Hasn't played at all in the NFL this season, but that's who they added to their practice squad for some internal depth. But it's Aaron Banks is going to be out a few weeks with a turf toe injury. And so it's John Feliciano, who's their backup center. If they have any other injury on the line, they're hosed. Because it's Matt Pryor or Nick Zakel is the next man up.
Have they ever added a guard? Have they added a guard mid-season since the Laken Tomlinson trade? Which I guess wouldn't even have been mid-season because that was right before week 1. And is that 2018?
18.
Laken Tomlinson?
17.
Was it 17? I mean,
18? Whatever.
Kyle Shanahan is just super reluctant to ever do anything of note at guard. Like,
which is insane. Which is insane.
Spencer Burford in the 4th round and made him a starter. No, I agree with you generally, but that's just not how they operate.
Yeah, I guess.
Unless it's like maybe Jonathan Cooper. Is that?
Sure, that's a person.
He was maybe he was.
It's not a Mike person.
Jonathan Cooper was like the he was like a 1st round pick. Or did they trade for him or just pick him up after he got? Anyway,
they don't. 2017, by the way, for Lake and Tomlinson.
For our guy Lake. Yeah, Kyle Shanahan he prioritizes center and tackles, and then it's just like whatever, we'll make it work with guard. Even though they used a pretty high pick on Aaron Banks.
They did. Point out. Yeah, they tried to lock that spot down. Somebody asked about the Adori Jackson rumor with the 49ers that the Niners and Giants had agreed to a trade for Adori Jackson, but the Giants didn't submit it to the league in time. That was a fake account. That didn't happen.
Oh.
A bunch of people
I did not see that.
A bunch of people in the NFL Wire Slack got.
That'll happen. Having been in that Slack, that will happen. Did that happen with Eric Branch too? I saw our guy said he tweeted out that he got duped by a fake account.
Yeah, that would probably be it. It's a professional headshot and it's a real name and it doesn't indicate that it's a parody account. You have to really dig to find it. So, anyways.
Shouts to Elon, man. That's so much fun.
He's just crushing it, bro. He's just honestly just really crushing it.
Just letting anybody buy a blue check mark. That's pretty dope.
Love to
pretty
see
helpful.
I don't even know if it's a blue check mark, honestly.
Information gathering that we all seem to be in.
Yeah, no doubt. Classic town square. People shouting fake sports rumors.
So the Niners have 18 sacks on the year. The Ravens lead the league with 31, Chiefs 28, Bills 28, Dolphins 27, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like a whole lot of teams. And then you get to the 49ers. If you go on Pro Football Reference and like sort defenses by sacks, the 49ers are 20th. Oof. But there are a bunch of teams that are sort of bunched up with the same number. So they're like the Niners are right in the middle of the league, which has to be, given what they're spending and given the talent overall, just has to be super disappointing.
The annoying thing is I have people reaching out who are not 49er fans. It just they cover the NFL in some capacity and they're like, hey, what's going on with the Niners? It's like, couldn't tell you.
It's a lot. I think it's a lot of different things.
Right. That's the problem is it's not if they were losing these games 17-13. You go, man, defense is still really good, but the offense just struggled without Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel. Once they get back, like, let's reassess. But there's that part of it. But then their offense has still been really efficient, but they're just not scoring, and now they're turning the ball over. And then the defense is a mess in all three levels. It's just such a dramatic turnaround from kicking the shit out of the Cowboys to this.
I do feel like, because I the first 5 games of the season, they ran for 156 yards per game, right? Obviously, some of that is a function of playing from ahead and game scripts and all of that. The last 3 games during the losing streak, since Trent Williams basically got hurt, they've been averaging 95.3 rushing yards per game. So they're down like almost half, right? So I think a fair criticism of Kyle Shanahan, even though I think we would agree and the NFL at large would agree Kyle Shanahan's one of the best offensive coaches in football. He has not proven that his offenses can work when the running game isn't going.
Yep.
Right. So like so much of what they do is predicated on, all right, we're going to show you a run look and then we're going to run outside zone that way. And it's going to pop for 12 yards. And then we're going to show the same look and do a play action boot off of it and have George Kittle running free 40 yards downfield. Right.
Yep.
Kyle Shanahan has been able to do that with his offense and rhythm when they've been able to run the ball ever since he came to the team, no matter who his quarterback's been really. And this speaks to what's the stat? They're 0-38.
0-37.
0-37 when down by 8 points in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
For whatever reason, Kyle Shanahan cannot devise a passing attack that isn't reliant on the running game being effective. And so I think with the running game, at least not enough, right? So I think that's an issue too. Like if Trent Williams isn't going to be there and you're not going to be able to run the ball as effectively against these 5-man down fronts, then you need, and maybe this is a Brock Purdy thing, but I think it's been pretty consistent throughout Kyle Shanahan's tenure there. So like, I don't know that if it's just Brock Purdy or if it might just be the type of quarterback that Kyle Shanahan looks for. But I think it's fair to point out that like we haven't seen Kyle Shanahan's passing offense be really effective when the running game just doesn't work. And the running game, frankly, hasn't worked the last 3 weeks. And maybe it's as simple as getting Trent Williams back and Deebo Samuel back, who contributes in the running game also. But to me, like you take away the 49ers running game, and we don't know that Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy can pass enough. And, particularly if you fall behind by a score or two to win the game. I mean, that 0-37 stat, and there are some extenuating circumstances, right? Like they had 2017, they were awful, right? They started 0-9.
I would love to see how many of those.
Well, 2018, they lose their starting quarterback. 2020, you're just screwed by injuries all over the roster, right? But at some point, you think you'd get one win.
One.
Just one.
Like 0-37 down 10, touchdown, wild. Stop, touchdown, up 4. That's never happened.
Yeah, like get a pick 6 or like return a kick for, I don't know, something. Like I feel like a lot of bad teams have been able to come back from down more than once.
What do you think Brock Purdy's completion rate is the last 2 weeks?
72%.
70.5. So what do you think his yards? What do you think his yards per attempt is the last 2 weeks?
Is it like 9 point something?
It's almost 10.5.
Yeah, the issue has been turnovers. He's been good. It's just the turnovers.
Also, 11 carries for 76 yards. Dual threat. Some are saying
Lamar. I saw on the internet that someone pointed out that he's quicker than Lamar Jackson.
Stop.
So
he and Lamar Jackson, same 10-yard burst.
Yeah, same 10-yard burst. More explosive. Totally. I heard it was great news for the Niners at how explosive Brock Purdy was with both his arms and his legs on side. It was amazing, great, phenomenal news that they lost 3 games in a row. And Brock Purdy was
the throw he made to George Kittle on where he sprinted out to the right and started to scramble and then threw it back to the middle of the field. Mm. That throw took 8 years to get there. That ball was in the air for such a long time.
Yeah, and the angle that I'm sure you had at the press box, going that way and seeing it, because I've seen those plays before from the press box. You're over all the way on the right side, and that end zone's on the left side, the far side.
Yeah,
like I could imagine that looked like a pick six, 16 different ways.
There were 2 defenders behind Kittle because you see him rolling out, and then you look to see what he's trying to see, and you see him let that ball go. There's 2 defenders behind Kittle, and you're like, no chance. And it somehow got there. Boy, that was.
I mean, he doesn't throw. I think he makes a lot of good throws, and particularly like throws downfield.
He really does.
He had a lot of really good throws in that game, and if you take away the interceptions, I mean, the numbers would indicate anyway. Brock Purdy had a really good game, but I think even like eye test wise, he had a really good game.
Yeah, that's the fascinating thing.
Aside from the turnovers, obviously.
So,
but he does not have much arm strength.
No, he doesn't. But he's accurate enough down the field though, and that's what really matters. But to get back to the point about Kyle Shanahan's passing game, I don't think it's necessarily the passing game that's a problem. I think that he can design a passing game just fine that doesn't require the run game to work. I think this team is built where the bar for quarterback has been dipped so low. And as good as Brock Purdy is, he's in that tier of quarterback where you don't feel great if you're putting the game on his right arm. And that's just kind of what the 49ers have had at quarterback under Kyle Shanahan. So I think that is the bigger problem, is the talent that they've had under center or lack thereof to go win a game when you can't necessarily rely on the rushing attack. So that's the bigger issue to me than Kyle Shanahan's scheme.
Unless you get Jimmy Garoppolo's like out of body experience in New Orleans.
Okay, there was that one, and then the 2 3rd and 17 throws he made against the Rams in 2019.
Mm-hmm. But they were never down. They must have not been down.
No, I think it was
in either of those games.
No, not in the 4th, and that game was either tied or the Rams were up a point because Robbie Gould kicked a game-winning field goal. But yep, never down 8. So
passing defense, the 49ers are 14th in the league. Or wait,
they're very. You know what they are? You know what the U's would call them? Mid.
They're 19th in the league.
They are very mid. They're just a mid-ass team right now.
Yeah.
The good news is they have a 5-game sample of them being really, really good this year with these players. So
yeah, I still generally believe they are far closer to the team that we saw during the first 5 weeks of the season than the last 3.
I think so too. I think we're going to learn a lot. And I don't want to talk about this now because it's for a different podcast, but I think we're going to learn a lot about them in week 10, just coming straight out of the bye.
Agreed.
So Chase Young will help though. Whether he solves all of their problems, I don't know, but you certainly like having Chase Young on the field way more than you like having Cleveland Ferrell or Randy Gregory or Drake Jackson, who's I guess he's just done for this year.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a lot of Drake Jackson inactive,
unless they cut Randy Gregory.
Healthy scratch games. Hey, what number do you think Chase Young's gonna wear? I'm pulling up the Niners roster right now.
98. Oh no, that's Javon Hargrave.
Oh,
what do you wear in college? 2.
2. So
that's
it looks like 96 is available.
Oh, no chance. That's Corey Lemonier, I think.
Yeah. So 96.
Nope.
92. Don't love
no
it.
No chance. That's Kerry Hyder.
Yeah. He could go like 56.
56 would be fine. That's Samson Ebukam. I'm fine with that. Is there another number in the 50s?
Oh, Austin Bryant rocks it on the practice squad. 56.
Tell Austin Bryant to kick rocks.
Could you go single digit?
Yes, that's what I was going to look up.
Could you go number 6?
6 would be kind of fire. I'm in on single digits for pass rushers. You have to be good, though.
Like huge ass dudes. You definitely have to be good. You can't be like practice squad guy.
What if he wore number 1?
That would be pretty tough.
I want him to wear number 1. I'm hoping that's what he does.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on single digits. I thought 9 would have been kind of cool, but that's Braden Willis's number. I'm usually anti-9, but since he went from going from 99 to 9, I think would be kind of cool.
And Braden Willis isn't just giving up that jersey.
No, you're gonna have to pry it from Braden Willis's cold dead hands.
I'm tweeting right now that I hope Chase Young wears number 1.
Okay. Good tweet.
Thanks, man.
Good tweet. Are they allowed to go teens?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anything else on the Chase Young acquisition? Should they have just not done it and then allocated like more resources to try to get Jalen Johnson? Or was it, do you think Jalen Johnson was like independent of whatever they did on the Chase Young front?
I think it was independent of the Chase Young thing. And my guess is that they maybe there was something they saw, or the Bears just wanted a first and the Niners were going to do that. I'm wondering if there was maybe something they saw on tape where they were like, hey, you know what? We're going to fix this in coverage and it's going to work. So let's go get Chase Young and wreak havoc again. I don't know.
Does the word wreak, as in wreak havoc, like, is that the only time it's ever used? Is like havoc the only thing that could ever be wreaked?
Yeah. I'm gonna any other time any other context I think of it in, every other context I think of it in, it sounds filthy.
Right.
Like, I'm about to wreak my pen all over this paper. Like, you're gonna do what? That sounds crazy.
Wreak havoc. Yeah, havoc's the only thing I think you can wreak without it sounding weird.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that you can appropriately wreak is some havoc.
Just, dude, anytime you can wreak a little havoc, I'm gonna do that every time.
Yeah. All right. Let's get out of here. We gotta figure out what we're gonna do later in the week, but we will do that offline. We'll come up with some bye week content, maybe some candies.
Yeah, definitely candies. I don't think Nick Bosa would give up 97.
No, I don't think so. They are close though. They both went to Ohio State and were teammates.
How psyched are you for that? I meant to ask that off the rip. You're just pretty fired up.
I've seen Ohio State players play for the 49ers for a long time, so it's kind of, old hat at this point.
Dante Whitner, other players, Trey Sermon, Carlos Hyde, of course. Mm-hmm.
There was a defensive back who was like practice squad guy for a minute. It's like a long, rangy sort of. He was like a DB, like could play safety and corner. Forgetting his name at the moment.
Sure.
Larry Grant.
Oh yeah, a City College San Francisco guy too, I believe.
Yes.
Larry Grant's a good one.
Yeah, Carlos Hyde.
I'm gonna think of another one when we're off the pod, and it's gonna really make me upset.
I feel really old though, thinking about like all the NFL players from Ohio State who are like really good, and my time at Ohio State like predates all those guys. Like I was there when Malcolm
Predates.
Predates.
Okay.
I was there when Malcolm Jenkins was there, like Terrell Pryor and like Beanie Wells.
Beanie Wells.
Yeah, like that's how long ago. Like I'm washed, bro. I am extremely washed.
There was a party going on at your house and you were flipping burgers. That's big washed, bro. But that's a good space to be in. That's a good place to be.
No, we're loving our mid 30s. It's just like when you get, like college used to feel like, oh yeah, like when I was at Ohio State, there are all these NFL guys. Like those dudes are now out of the league.
Right.
Like,
dang.
I am old.
Bananas. Dante Johnson was NC State?
Yes.
Somebody brought that up in the YouTube chat. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, by the way, youtube.com/@Candlestick Chronicles podcast. Or if you just go to YouTube and search Candlestick Chronicles, it is available there.
Candlecron on Twitter. No stick, no ickles.
No stick, no ickles. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast.
Been firing more takes off that platform over there on X.
Which is great. I love that you're back on X talking Niners.
We do need to start expanding to other platforms, but that will happen in the not too distant future, hopefully.
Hell yeah. Can't wait.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
We got candy to give out. There may or may not have been trick-or-treaters knocking on my door, even though it's early. Like if you're trick-or-treating at 5 o'clock and the sun's still out, like some of us are podcasting. I apologize for not getting to the door, but
I heard the dog got it. Lily?
Yeah, the dog let him know. Lily. Yeah, Lily's.
Yeah, great dog. A+ dog.
A+ dog, not fond of having people knock on the door. Just overall. But anyway. All right, we're going to get out of here.
Okay.
Talk to you guys later in the week.
Goodbye, everybody.
Peace.